Right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Lee Armstrong, and I'm the co-founder and technical director of Pinkfruit. We are a small iPhone development house in the south of the United Kingdom, and we specialize in marine and aviation tracking applications. No one ever really remembers an app developer by their name, or quite rarely. Most people remember the apps, so I thought I'd run through just a couple of our apps to maybe give you a bit of an introduction. So first up was Shipfinder. Now this came out in early 2009. It takes us ship information from throughout the world. We plot around 17 to 18,000 vessels on the map at any one point in time. And we show extra things such as pictures and other route information as well. Next up, a bit later in that year, we came up with Planefinder. It does exactly the same, but for planes. We have route histories, we have pictures, and we have push notifications as well. And then the one we kind of got a bit more famous for, which was Planefinder AR. Now this is where we merge augmented reality with the plane technology we've got. You know, you hold up your phone to the sky, just like there. That's my back garden, really juddery and horrible. And basically we overlay the digital information on the physical world. In total, for all of our apps, including Ship and Plane and Free and augmented reality, we've got 2.5 million downloads in total. That's over a period of 3 years. So how did I get into this? Well, my wife and I, we've always kind of wanted to get out of the 9 till 5 rat race. I mean, who hasn't really? You know, it's just something that everyone wants to get out of. She was reading the Daily Telegraph newspaper on her iPhone, of course, and this article was there, and it says that Apple's iPhone was a developer's goldmine. Now, this was in the early days. You know, this was with the bubble wrap apps and the Trisms, and you know, this was early, but people were making real serious money from this. You know, people were living off of this. So, you know, when you get that look from your wife, she says, you know, Lee, can you do this? And I'm thinking, well, you know. And I say, yeah, you know, why not? Let's give it a go. Now, what I want to do today is kind of share kind of the journey and our success with you guys, and hopefully you'll get some stuff from this, and it will be useful to you. So every app starts with an idea. And, you know, when we started, we had various ideas. You know, we had the real gimmicky ideas, and then we had some other ideas. And one of them was Shipfinder. And that's how surprised I was when I came up with the idea. Live in a beautiful part of the country there. It's Portsmouth, it's on the south coast, and there's ships going past all the time. So we've got cruise ships and military ships, and it's just real busy. And, you know, the inner geek in me just kind of wondered what those ships were, and so I did a bit of research and found out this technology did exist. And I fused it together, and yeah, Shipfinder was born. So how do you go about learning to write an app? I mean, before all of this started, and before my wife did that obvious look, you know, I didn't write a single line of code. I knew no Objective-C, I knew no code whatsoever. And back in the early days, there was very little resources out there. Still today is one book that I highly recommend. It's called Beginning iPhone Development. It really does take you from the beginning of iPhone development right through to the end, and talks about Xcode, but it doesn't talk about it crashing, but you know, that does happen as well. And the other thing that I highly recommend is coming to places like this. Not really to listen to us guys, you know, bleating onto you guys, really, but the mingling and in the interaction, you know, us speakers and speaking with people yesterday, it really is invaluable, and you'll really meet some friends for life, and they're really valuable resources. The other one, if I dare speak about it, to go to is WWDC. That's if, you know, the time zones work out and you can manage to get tickets in the 30-second window they're available. But it's, you know, it's invaluable, and the reason I find it really good is also for the meet and greet, but you get to sit down with the Apple engineers, and if you've got a real specific problem, you know, our apps are very heavily MapKit based, and I've had some issues, and I sat down with them, and they really did help out with me. Now, most apps these days have some sort of backend, some sort of web interface, web service or database. You know, it's very rare for apps to not have that these days. And when we built Shipfinder and Planefinder, we knew this. And we knew that we weren't going to start with 2.5 million users, but we ultimately wanted to get to that stage one day. So when we first started off, we had, you know, shared hosting. It was £5 a month. It was really cheap. But we knew that when we did it, we needed to make it really, really modular so that when we did need to expand, that we could expand really quickly and with zero downtime as well. So we built everything really modular, so there was databases here, databases there. And for me, that was kind of my skill from before, so setting up servers and things like that. And that's exactly how it happens. You know, there's a magical keynote transition with sparkly effects, and we've got 32 servers today. It's quite great. But you know, if that isn't your bread and butter, that's not what you do. There's Heroku and Amazon that other developers I've come across, they really recommend them to use. Another important point is once you've got your app, you are going to need to do some testing. I first thought quite naively when I wrote my first app, the Shipfinder app, that, hey, I've written this code, it's perfect, you know, yeah, it's cool, it plots ships and stuff. No, it crashes and it breaks, and you know, you will get that. And with the more users you get, you will see more crashes potentially. So you need to test, and you need to test on all of the devices you can get your hands on. That's the collection I've acquired over the years. But if you don't have that now, you can use all the other developers that are here today. I'm sure some of them have got a variety of the devices. And when you do testing, you need to test on all sorts of connections, not just in the simulator. You need to test on a 3G connection. You need to test on your GPRS. You need to test on sort of like these captive portals, free Wi-Fi's. So the app needs to gracefully die or at least show a message up. And also, if your app is like a core location-based app, test in different locations as well. And when I came here to Australia, it's the first time I've been here. We have got a lot of users here, but the first thing I do is open up our apps just to make sure that they function as intended, really. Now, there's 700 apps going live in the App Store every day at the moment. It's a huge, huge number. And discovery and being noticed is really, really difficult. We found that the best way is to deal with the press. I'm not talking about like adverts or anything like that, nothing you pay for, but I'm talking about quality articles in some quality establishments there. Some of them a bit more not so, but there's some quality stuff up there. And to get those, we worked with these journalists from really early stages. We were dealing with them on Twitter and email before the apps were even made or when we were testing them, and we got them involved. These guys really appreciate being involved at a really long, an early stage so that they can talk about this and plan ahead, and they've got you in their mind when they need to go ahead with it. They're probably going to receive about 700 press releases every single day. What's going to single you out? Nothing really. So you need to get really heavily involved with them. Up to this point, I must admit I haven't been completely honest with you guys. My name is Lee Armstrong, but that's not my job title. Yeah. I'm also a terrorist. Well, that's if you're going to believe the Daily Mail newspaper in the UK and a site run by Rupert Murdoch. The story behind this is that it was a Friday afternoon, and I was literally just about to quit my day job to become full-time Planefinder developer. And it was quite scary. I got a phone call from this journalist from the Daily Mail, Jason Lewis, lovely chap, and he accuses me of being a terrorist. I think I'm a bit more of an app developer and other stuff, really, but not a terrorist. I said that I don't think you can link a missile launcher to our app. Apple wouldn't let us in for the Made for iPhone program with an accessory, the hardware. I just don't think it would go. This article was going to be published in the Sunday newspaper, and there's quite a few readers for this, and I was quite worried. So Saturday came, and Saturday went. And Sunday came, and Sunday went. The world didn't end, and it was all right. It went fine. Monday came, and that's obviously when we get our sales figures for the Sunday. Yeah, thank you, Daily Mail. There's no such thing as bad press, and if you've got a sort of a controversial app or something to exploit, do it. Seriously, it does work. Just want to mention something that kind of reinforces a few of the things I've talked about so far. Back in early 2010, a volcano erupted in Iceland. Now, this pretty much grounded air traffic across the whole of Northern Europe. We've got an app that's it's our most popular app, and it's tracking planes, and it's not really tracking any planes at all. It's a pretty useless app. So we got quite worried. We've got a whole business that's orientated around this, and yeah, it's not tracking any planes. But we soon realized that people were downloading and buying the app to not track any planes. It was crazy. They could have just opened up the Google Maps app but no, they wanted that. So we noticed this heavy load and demand coming into our backend. So, using the scale and the modularness of modularness? That's a word anyway, of our system, we scaled it up, and we scaled it up really, really quickly. And the press guys that we'd been dealing with in the past, we contacted them and go, yeah, look, this plane app that, you can track and shoot down planes, yeah, you can't track and shoot down planes anymore. And they ran with it. They were really, really good and gave us some good PR from it. And because we tested it, we were really, really confident that it would stand up to this heavy load of users coming in. And again, that was a brilliant sales day for us as well. So you don't know when these things are going to happen. I don't know when a volcano is going to erupt. I do hope for it quite often, but they don't always happen when you want them to. When we set out to build Pink Fruit, we knew we wanted to have a suite of applications. We weren't quite sure what, but we knew we did want to build it. And to this day, we've got Planefinder and Shipfinder. And there's other companion apps like the augmented reality ones. We've got HD versions for iPad. And you'll see that they're all very similar branding, very similar logos, and very similar names. And even the apps themselves are very, very similar. One user could pick up Planefinder, pretty much just use Shipfinder as well. This bit really does work. We've got users that are diehard Planefinder fans, and they love Planefinder, but they'll just go and download Shipfinder just because they know and love it, and they might not even really be that interested in ships, but it's the price of a coffee, so they just do it. But this bit really does work. So if you've got this opportunity to do this sort of cross-promotion and this cross-branding, do it. It really does work. The other thing we've got as well is we've got a user community website at my.pinkfruit.com. Now, this is like a social network where the ship and plane fans can kind of talk to us and talk to each other. The thing that we didn't realize at first is that users would want to upload photos of their ships and their planes that they're going out to take photos of. We've got, at the moment, around 60,000 photos. And we show them in the app as well. So the users go out, they see that there's no photo for this aircraft, they'll go out and take it and upload it to the website. And they feel a sort of a real engagement and a real involvement into it. And 60,000 photos is quite a lot. On the subject of users, I know I said you'd kind of build an app for yourself, but ultimately, once you've got 2.5 million, it's not for yourself, it's for your users. And you're going to have some interaction with those users. In the early days, it's really just going to be app reviews. A couple of those are my favorite. They're both bonkers crazy. The 5-star one just tickles me every time. It's great. If I need a pickup, I just read it. We don't tend to really pay too much attention to reviews, but ratings we do, because there's some prime examples of why. What I would say, though, is if you see a sort of a common problem or fault with your app, just fix it. The guys really do appreciate it, and they will leave you a review. And also, as a developer, it's quite hard to see a review, know something is working, but they're saying it isn't, and it's possibly quite a few people saying it's not working. You really do need to work on your UX, and you need to explain that feature better potentially. The other interactions you'll get are sort of email. Now, we deal with about 50 to 100 emails every single day from our users. It takes up a huge amount of our time. And the responses are usually quite complex due to the nature of the applications as well. But the users really do feel, and they love that involvement and that engagement that we give them back. They've only paid a couple of pounds for this app, and they're getting top quality support. And I mean, how many apps have you had that you've tried to email developers and you've never had a response? I get that all the time, and I just testing the water, and it's quite disappointing, really, and it makes me feel quite sad. The other things that we do as well is with the social networks. So we've got the Twitter and the Facebook are the two big ones. They really do work for us as well. Inside Planefinder, for example, users can share content to Twitter with a screenshot. Anyone that follows Anthony on Twitter will see that he was tweeting with everyone, all the speakers coming in. You know, and because you saw the content coming from him, you kind of trusted it more than it coming from a company. And that sort of thing works. So if you've got the opportunity to get user content onto a user timeline, do it. Now, it's great that I've been listening to the other speakers, and they've all been saying pretty much the same thing about this, and that's great. We have done pretty much app updates for Shipfinder and Planefinder pretty regular. We like to put all right, ignore the numbering. I wasn't a developer. It's kind of a bit random. But we like to do a sort of a feature release and some bug fixes in that as well. We don't change too much, but we do them really frequently. And again, you've heard it all before from the guys. This really works. You know, it re-engages the users. They like new, fresh things, even if it just says bug fixes. They do tend to just like that as well. Yeah, and that bit really does work. Now, once you've become successful, when you get lots of downloads, you're going to have a business on your hands. Unfortunately or fortunately, you decide really. But, you know, in theory, it's a good thing. There's the things on the left that I like to think I could probably do, but, you know, I can't really at all. And I highly recommend that you get the best that you can afford at that time. A good example of this is we've got some accountants in the UK, and they cost lots of money. They're rip-off merchants, all right, but that's what all accountants are. But our tax officials in the UK get really confused about how to sell apps abroad, and it's all in the Apple contract, but you know, it's really complicated, all the sales taxes here and sales taxes there. It is simple, but it needed an expensive accountant to tell our tax officials, and potentially you might come across this as well. Certainly other developers in the UK have also found this. There are also some things on the right-hand side that we use. App figures, so that's for sales and reporting. We've got Hockey app, and that's for beta distribution, and we use it for live crash reporting as well. And Beanstalk. Beanstalk is a Git and SVM repository for our source code management. Now, each of those are about $15 a month. They're really, really cheap. And potentially you could all do this yourself. You mean you're developers, so you know, they're not too bad to do. You know, app figures, you could write your own CSV parsing, right? It's not too hard. The thing is, you'd have got to spend a lot of time setting this up. And more importantly, you've got to spend time maintaining it as well. And you've got to value your time. You know, $15 a month is not a lot. Your time could be better spent, you know, producing app updates and potentially even new products. You know, you really, really need to value your time. Now, I'm glad I'm the first person to have done this so far, and I don't think I'm going to be the last. I hope I'm not. So yeah, I can't come to a conference called this and not do this. I want to talk about cross-platform. Now, we obviously engage with our users quite a lot, and we got a lot of emails from users. And there was a strong demand for Android. You know, there's a global recession going on. People want to save some money, and there's Android trees growing everywhere where you can pick these lovely Android phones that run the Facebook and the Twitter, and hey, they run all the apps, don't they? Yeah, so we got a lot of emails from people with that. So we decided to produce an Android version. What's on the screen now is actually our iOS sales for Planefinder for last December, so the Christmas period. The peaks that you see are weekends, and we see that every week pretty much. So we get a peak at the weekend, slight trough in the weeks, and it picks up at the weekends. Yep, Christmas. It's brilliant. You know, everyone unboxes their shiny Apple iPads, iPhones, whatever, and they all go and download apps. It's Christmas Day is great. I love it. You know, you're eating turkey and just watching it all come in. That's our Android sales for the same period for the same app. It's not Christmas. It's boring. Yeah, so I mean that is really disheartening. And from a numbers point of view, we find it's around 10% our run rate. So 10% of our iOS sales, our Android sales are about. But hey, Windows Phone came out, didn't it? I mean, I love my Windows Phone. I do have one. I do think it is better than Android. I really do like the interface. And especially with that Nokia deal that came up, you know, it really sounded quite encouraging to everyone and the developer community. It certainly was a contender for Android, and potentially even a contender for iOS in the long term. You know, there was none of this fragmentation at that time. And, you know, there were some really, really encouraging points. Yeah. If you can't see that line, I've got a laser, and it's, you know, I think one day it bought me a coffee, but you know, the upside to take from this is that, you know, you're at an iOS developer conference, and that blue line, if that's blue, I'm colorblind. That's our iOS sales, and you know, you're here to learn and potentially produce iOS apps, and I really do think that's the way forward, at least to start with. So yeah, thank you very much for your time. I'm always on Twitter and email, and I love responding to people and helping out and test your apps and stuff. So yeah, get in touch. Thank you very much.